back to Alice Talks Football and welcome back to another live Manchester United news, transfer news and update show. In today's video, we're going to discuss Manchester United's 100 million boost going into the 2026 transfer window. Why Manchester United are in a better financial position than people think. One thing we've learned about Ratcliffe is he's full of lies. And to be honest, to be a billionaire, you've got to be full of lies. I mean, I believed his lies last summer that we were broken, we were not going to be able to spend barely any money last summer without sales, and then we went and brought Cunha and Bumo and Sesko before really any sales, because you know what? I believe the Man United were broken last summer, but I don't believe it now. Manchester United have money. Manchester United want to sign two top quality midfielders, potentially a third, depending on exits. United are looking at wing-backs, potentially a striker, and other positions. We've got lots and lots to discuss in today's show. We'll also talk about other bits and bobs that is going about in the Manchester United news. We're going to talk about the, obviously, Brighton game, which is a game that I'm not looking forward to. We'll talk about JJ Gabriel. We're going to talk about Alexander Pavlovich being linked to Manchester United, but also Baleba having a meeting with Brighton manager Hertzler over his future, over his game time, and more. So, listen, people, I hope you're doing well. Please do let me know your thoughts down below in the chat. As in my live shows, I always like to get into the chat and know how you're feeling. You're welcome to hit that like button. You're welcome to subscribe if you're new. And let's dive into it, covering the first story, which I'm only going to give 30 seconds of my attention to because we've spoken about it so much over the last week, but that is the Mirror coming out and saying that Joshua Zirkzee would prefer to stay in the Premier League as he looks to earn a place in the Netherlands World Cup squad with a move away from United, and West Ham are leading the race. There's talk of Zirkzee going to West Ham. If I was him, I'd go back to Italy, but I also think with Bowen and Somerville, that trio that they could form could be quite nice. And considering when Lingard went to West Ham, even Wan-Bissaka, you know, Man United players seem to do pretty well at West Ham. Ahmad also spoke about his relationship with Brian Mbeumo. There was a lot of reports and rumours coming out that Ahmad wasn't happy about playing right wing back, but Ahmad's kind of shut down those rumours, saying at the beginning Mbeumo was a new player and we were just trying to understand each other, but now we find a solution. When he goes to right wing back, I go to right 10. When he plays as a 10, I go to right wing back. I think I have a very good relationship with Mbeumo, even outside the pitch. He even talks about other stuff, how, you know, he's happy to play right 10, he's happy to play right wing back, and the most important thing is about the team winning. And one thing you can never fault Ahmad for is his attitude. And I still can't believe that there was people about 3 weeks ago slandering Ahmad, blaming Ahmad for the poor start to the season just because Ahmad wasn't quite at his very best. When I think versus Sunderland and versus Liverpool, he was easily a top 3 player on the pitch those last 2 games. We have been linked to Angelo Stiller, but again, it's a cheap option. I think he's technically good. There would be physicality questions, but I don't think there's much in it until we get closer to the window. And Alice, what do you think the right price is for Baleba? 100 million after his unimpressive start to the season is quite a reach. I agree. I think he's worth 70 million, if I'm going to be honest. But this is Brighton. Brighton love to absolutely rinse us for their players. So that was a little bit of your intro. That was a little bit of an overview of the news. But I want to talk about United's £100 million PSR boost, explaining how it can fund transfers in the summer and more. So, we'll start with this story. We've got a few things to get into. We will touch upon the Greenwood and everything as well and how this works. So, if all goes to plan, we will receive £26 to £27 million for Marcus Rashford from Barcelona. And I believe we could be saving around 17 million in wages if we got UCL football. In general, we're going to be saving depending on Rashford's wages and depending on Rashford's fee, because Rashford's wages are reported. Some people as 14 million, some people as 20 million, some people as 17 million. But in general, we're probably going to save around £40 million, maybe just over, through Marcus Rashford. Now, Marcus Rashford has made it very clear he's happy at Barcelona. He wants to go to Barcelona. And some Man United fans are upset that Marcus Rashford's giving an interview saying he wants to make his Barcelona move permanent. If Marcus Rashford was doing an interview saying, fuck Barcelona, I want to come back to Man United, you'd also complain. So, do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know why people are upset that Marcus Rashford said he wants to make his move to Barcelona permanent. You know, Anthony said the same about Real Betis, and the same people didn't seem to have an issue with that. I do think there's a weird Rashford agenda out there. But Marcus Rashford looks like he's going to go to Barcelona unless he gets a really bad injury, unless he falls off a cliff. I think Rashford has got that Barcelona move almost nailed down. The big question is Højlund and Napoli. Now, Højlund started very well for Napoli, but he's out for a couple of weeks with an injury. Now, it's a 40 million fee, which I think, all things considered, is actually quite good, because when you think of the wages saved and when you think of the loan fee they're also paying us, we're probably going to get around 50 million for Højlund. And considering we've got 2 years out for Højlund, his book value's gone down. It's actually quite decent business. All Napoli need to make Højlund permanent is to get Champions League football. If Napoli finish in the top 4, then Rasmus Højlund deal will be a permanent. The thing is, Napoli have lost 2 games this season. Napoli haven't started as well as maybe the likes of an NAC or an Inter, but Napoli were expected to finish in the top 4. It's like Liverpool not finishing in the top 4, which basically means, Højlund is almost nailed on, especially with Højlund looking pretty good in that sense. And then obviously we make 50% of a Greenwood sale, and that could be anywhere between 20 to 50 million, depending on the fee, because some sources say we make 50% of the profit Marseille make on Greenwood, and some people say no, we get 50% overall, which is very interesting. But we did give Greenwood to Marseille for about 25 million. So if Greenwood went for 75 million, we either get 25 million because that is the profit, and that means we got 50 million total for Mason Greenwood pure profit, or we get 37.5 million, because that's half 75 million, which is pretty crazy to think. But from the money from Greenwood, Rashford, Højlund, if Greenwood goes in the summer, Marseille set to cash in on him, Rashford and Højlund both set to go. The money that we make, that's going to bring United 100 million. And then Greenwood and Rashford is pure profit as well. Like, Greenwood could be bringing us an extra 25 million pure profit. Rashford's bringing us at least 25 million pure profit. 50 million pure profit is, you could spend up to 200 million if you brought a 200 million player and gave him a 4-year contract. I'm not saying that United are going to do that, but 200 million is going to get us 2 elite level midfielders. And the money that can come from the pure profit of Greenwood and Rashford could potentially allow us to spend 200 million on 2 100 million midfielders. In case of any future sale, United will receive 50% of the transfer fee for Greenwood. Clubs are prepared to pay big money last summer, but Marseille refused to sell. We know from Romano, and we know from many credible sources, there's a lot of top clubs interested in Greenwood, PSG, Barcelona, all the top clubs outside of England, because the clubs in England will be a little bit scared to bring him back for obvious reasons. All the top clubs are looking at Mason Greenwood right now. Now, Romano is saying that Man United will receive 50% of the transfer fee for Greenwood. Now, in terms of my understanding, we receive 50% of the profit Marseille make. So we sold them to Marseille for 25 million. If Marseille sell them for 75 million, Marseille make 50 million profit and we make 25 million. Now, Romano is saying, and I don't know if this has been misquoted, in case of any future sale, United receive 50% of the transfer fee. So let's see Greenwood goes for 75 million. Maybe we're making 37.5 million instead of 25 million. Apparently, clubs were prepared to pay big money for him last summer, but Marseille refused to sell. He obviously got 4 goals in his last game for Marseille. He's been scoring in the Champions League. He's been scoring in Ligue 1. He got 20 goals last season in Ligue 1. Everyone knows Greenwood's a phenomenal player. Greenwood never left Man United because he wasn't good enough. Greenwood left Man United because he was a prick off the pitch. That's why Greenwood didn't make it at Man United. It was never to do with his ability. Everyone knows his ability is insane. It was to do with things outside of his ability. And, he's gone to Marseille. I wouldn't say he's cleared his image. I don't think his image can ever be completely clear. But it is one of those where I think people, particularly abroad, who are less known with the situation, are a bit more forgetful. And time has passed in the sense of there are some big clubs in Europe that are thinking, can we bring Greenwood in? Now, I know in Germany they won't. And I know in England they're reluctant. But I know in Spain, Italy, and France, they're not so reluctant about the whole situation. And Barcelona have been there. They've been scouting him because Lewandowski's going to go. They want a long-term striker, but he can also play on the right and cover Lamine Yamal. He can also play striker. PSG are interested as well. There's a lot of top clubs interested in Mason Greenwood. And Marseille are looking at this as an opportunity to potentially cash in and make some money. It's likely just a portion of the profit. We were not in a strong position when we sold them due to the circumstances. I agree. I'd be very surprised if we got 50% of what they actually sell them for. I think it will be a case of 50% of the profit. That's what I think it will be. So 25 million for Rashford, assuming he plays well. Maybe 25 million for Greenwood if he goes. and Rasmus will give us 10 million net after what we still owe. Get rid of Casemiro and Maguire, and that's 28 million in wages. You can look at it in that perspective. So that's 50 million for Rashford and Greenwood, 10 million for Højlund, takes us to 60 million if we're looking at his book value. And then you look at Casemiro, Maguire, and Rashford's wages. Casemiro, Maguire, and Rashford's wages go to 40 million, and that's 100 million freed up by Man United, which is pretty bad. Happy Rashford's doing well in Barcelona, yeah. I mean, some Man United fans aren't happy about it, but if Rashford does bad at Barcelona, then they don't buy him, then he comes back, and then we're paying him ridiculous wages when he's unhappy and doesn't want to be here. I'm a big Rashford fan, so obviously I want Rashford to do well. But there's Rashford haters hoping he flops at Barcelona who are Man United fans. And it's like, okay, I get it. You don't like Rashford. You don't want him to prove you wrong. But you're a Man United fan and you don't like him, so surely you want him sold. So surely you'd want him to do well at Barcelona. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm quite shocked that there's fans that don't want him to do well at Barcelona. I want him to do well at Barcelona because I really like him. But also, it means that Barcelona are going to buy him if he does well. So I do like Garnacho, not anymore. Like, because, Rashford didn't force his way out. Garnacho's not likeable. Rashford is likeable. People disagree on that, but I think Rashford is likeable. I think he's done a lot of good things. He hasn't got the ego that I think people make out that he has. He's been an idiot with the Belfast incident. He's definitely a confidence player. He definitely lets things get in his head. But I think Rashford is such a likeable guy. Like, some of the work he does outside of football, the volunteering, I think he's a likeable guy. Even when he was being forced out by Amorim, he wanted to play for us. Garnacho's had strops. Garnacho's called out the manager. Garnacho's had public strops. Garnacho, I liked and rated Garnacho, but I also, after the Europa League final, was like, he's got to go. He's a brat. I never thought Rashford was a brat. I was like, something more's going on here. Something's going on behind the scenes with maybe Rashford and us partying or something. But Rashford was never publicly disrespectful about our manager. And Rashford was never acting out like Garnacho did. There was just that Belfast incident and his wages. Garnacho was a brat. I like Rashford and I still like Rashford. I don't like Garnacho. I don't like Garnacho because he rejected everybody for Chelsea. He literally rejected everybody for Chelsea. Garnacho for me Garnacho's ego is just different. Yeah. My issue with Rashford is he turns it on and off when he feels like it, but that's a boss issue to deal with. I agree. It's frustrating how we can turn it on and off, but I think a lot of it is the mental side. It's definitely a mental side. I wanted to talk about Garnacho, actually, because I thought this was quite funny. I got a lot of Chelsea fans a bit annoyed with me for this. So I tweeted this. I was being a bit shameless, to be honest, because I actually think Garnacho is going to succeed at Chelsea. I do. But I tweeted that Garnacho played a crazy amount of minutes at Man United and was fuming that he was occasionally benched. For context, Garnacho played over 100 games for Man United in the last 2 seasons at age 20. That is unheard of. To be age 20 and play over 100 games for Man United across 2 seasons, to start 37 games in a row for Manchester United as a teenager is unheard of. But every now and then Garnacho was benched, so he was fuming. So Garnacho forces his way out of Man United and he can't even get off the Chelsea bench. Like, Maresca is putting on Tyreek George, who was about to get a deadline day move to Fulham, over Garnacho. Like, Garnacho's head must be hot. You couldn't get off the bench when you played Man United. You couldn't get off the bench against Ajax. You finally start a game versus Nottingham Forest, and you get hooked at half-time. He'd be annoyed at Amorim for hooking him off in the 70th minute. He'd be annoyed he gets taken off in the 70th minute by Amorim. Maresca ain't even giving him 45 minutes. He'd be annoyed that Amorim would only give him half an hour in the Europa League final. You're not getting any minutes in the Champions League. Like, Maresca's not even subbing him on. He would be annoyed at Amorim for subbing him on for half an hour and not starting. He's now got a manager who's not subbing him on. Now, this is early days. Things can change. He can make a point. He can prove his worth. But Maresca isn't giving up many minutes. He left Man United because Amorim didn't start him every game. I don't know what delusion Garnacho was in to think that he could leave Manchester United for a Champions League club in the Premier League and think that he's going to play more minutes. The amount of minutes Garnacho played at Manchester United last season was ridiculous. It was absolutely ridiculous. For his age, he played so many minutes, and Amorim dropped him here and there because I think his form's hit and miss across the season. But it's like he had this big argument with the manager because he got benched every now and then. But Garnacho played a crazy amount of minutes. So far at Chelsea, Garnacho's not played a single full 90. Garnacho's been hooked off early in every single one of his starts. So I'm just confused. I am just confused, to be honest, with Garnacho. He's only started 2 games and he got hooked off in both of them. Which is mad because we look at Garnacho last season. Last season, when Garnacho was complaining about minutes, he played 3,568 minutes for Man United last season. 3,568 minutes he played for Manchester United last season. The season before, he played 3,574 minutes. Garnacho in the last 2 seasons has played 7,000 minutes of football. Garnacho in the last 2 seasons has played 7,000 minutes of football. That is a lot of football that he's played in the last 2 seasons. A lot of football. 7,000 minutes as a teenager for Manchester United. For context, in the last 2 seasons of football, Erling Haaland played 4,000 minutes last season. He only played a few more minutes than Garnacho. You know, Erling Haaland has only played about 200, 300 more minutes than Garnacho in the last 2 seasons. And there's a big difference between them. Garnacho has a toxic entourage, his ego is out of control and advising poor career decisions. I agree. I think he's a good player in Garnacho. I think he's a raw player. I think he was over-criticised at times. But whatever was going on in his head to be rude about Amorim, forced his way out of Man United because he occasionally got benched, to then think that he was going to start every game at Chelsea and play 90 minutes when they have Esteban and Neto on the right. They've got him and Gittins on the left. They've got Palmer. They've got Tyreek George, who Maresca seems to like more than him. You know, it's mad. You know, Kenda's coming in as well. Chelsea clearly brought him to sell him on for profit. If we let Casemiro and Maguire go, that's 28 million in wages. No way they should stay. And if we let Rashford go, that's about 40 million in wages, which is crazy. Garnacho will never reach Neto's levels. He's Medjugorje level, pure runner, not footballer. I think Garnacho will be a really good player for Chelsea. I think that he actually will prove some worth, but I don't think he's going to be like... I think Garnacho's ceiling isn't maybe as high as he thinks his ceiling is, but I think he's a very good player. I think with Garnacho, he needs to be humbled a bit, and I think he needs to realise where he's at. Garnacho and Sancho really showing United who's boss. Is Sancho even playing at the moment? Sancho's being humiliated online by some woman called Sweetie or something. Didn't he get a tattoo of some woman he barely knew, and then she's went out on social media saying that like Sancho paid for it or something. I don't know if that was true. The thing is, you can't believe everything you read off social media, but you know, there's people, you know, there's Sancho and this girl called Sweetie and all of this crap on social media. You know, and he got a tattoo of her. Like, I mean, I don't even know what's going on with Sancho, but he's barely playing for Aston Villa and barely doing anything. I mean, I think he just picks lifestyle. Garnacho's problem was ego. Garnacho's problem was he's just got an ego and he thinks he's a lot better than he is. Sancho's problem is lifestyle. I think Sancho wants the lifestyle of like a rapper, but he's a footballer. I feel like he wants the most money. He wants I just feel like he's more interested in like girls and clothes and what he wears than football. I honestly think at this rate, because he rejected an opportunity to go to Chelsea. He rejected a lot of top clubs when he's saying he's so unhappy at Man United just so he can keep his Man United wages. You know, he's played 181 minutes of football this season, 8 minutes in the Premier League. Sancho's played, no goals and no assists. Yeah, I just think that, you know, Sancho, you know, I just don't think I think he cares more about other stuff than football. And I think Garnacho is an ego issue. You know, I've always said, you know, with Rashford, I think Rashford has this unfair rep. I think Rashford works incredibly hard. And I think Rashford cared about football because he took a big wage cut to go to Barcelona. And Rashford's the one that got all this slander. Everyone used to talk about like Rashford's work rate and Rashford's attitude. And Rashford's the one that got all this slander. But he's the one that took a wage cut. He's the one that, you know, worked crazy hard this summer and dreamed of Barcelona move. Sancho was the one rejecting every club. Garnacho was the one rejecting every club. So, take the 40 million for Garnacho and be happy about it. I was unhappy at first because I think we could have got 55 million considering Gittins cost that, but I'm happy with the 40 million. Yeah, I mean, I think we could have got more for Garnacho, but look, I'm kind of just happy he's gone. You know, Cunha and Mbumo are just so much better. I was surprised that Chelsea went for Garnacho over the likes of Cunha and Mbumo. Many of these footballers just have the wrong sort of people advising them these days. This is the thing, it's dangerous. if you're a young footballer, it is dangerous. It's dangerous because you get all this attention, all these girls, all this money at such a young age. I think it can be a distraction. I mean, there's a lot of people concerned about Limban Yamal, but he's just an absolute different level of player. But it is like quite dangerous to think you're 18, 19, and all of a sudden you get all these girls, all this money, all this attention. They need the right people around them, these footballers. I don't think Sancho got an assist last night. He's got no goals and assists on Transfermarkt, so I don't think he got an assist last night. But yeah, Sancho's mentality was poor. Yeah, Garnacho's mentality was poor. Mentality of a lot of players at Man United was poor. But look, we've made money on them. We've got 40 million for Garnacho, pure profit. We're going to get 40 million for Højlund, hopefully. We're going to make 26 million pure profit on Rashford and save probably another 14 million on wages. So we're going to save around 40 million on Rashford. We potentially could be getting 20, 25 million for Mason Greenwood with the sell-on clause as well, which is pure profit. There's money coming in, and that puts us in a position to do what we want to do and, fix the midfield. Oh, I'm going to share my screen because I want to get into midfield news. It was a deflection, I think so. It wouldn't have been a Sancho assist. Yeah, because he's not got an assist registered. What do you think of Mason Mount? Mixed feelings. He's not number 7, but I think he's been good this season. He just needs to stay fit and do it more. But I've been happy with what I've seen from Mason Mount this season. But I don't think he was particularly good versus Liverpool. Yeah. Man United. Yeah, Man United play a part. I think when you're at Man United, you sometimes think you've made it. If you're playing games for Man United 19, I think people think they've made it. I think they don't realise that people that play games for Man United 19 sometimes end up in the Scottish second division. So, you look at some players that play minutes for Man United at a young age. Brandon Williams, he got a lot of minutes at a young age. What is he doing now? Varela got a decent amount of minutes at a young age. Makeda, there's a lot of players that are playing minutes for United at a young age. What are they doing now? There's other players that weren't getting loads of minutes and they're doing great now. Dean Henderson, for example, James Garner, Alvaro. But I think some people think they've made it. So I want to talk about Baleba. Baleba has held private talks with Brighton manager about his playing time at the club. Manchester United remain keen to sign him. Brian Mbeumo has been encouraging him to move to Old Trafford. So Baleba has obviously been dropped a little bit for Brighton. He's getting hooked a bit for Brighton because he's not started well. Some sources say he's actually struggling with a knee injury. Other sources say that Manchester United have got in Baleba's head and that Mbeumo has been encouraging him to move to United. Baleba was phenomenal last season, got linked to Man United, not been the same player since, which does put me off him a little bit. But he's been having talks with the Brighton manager about his future at the club. Now, Brighton are trying to make it clear we ain't selling him in January to you. That's what Brighton are trying to make clear. And a January move will be difficult. But a move for Baleba in the summer is looking like a real possibility. We've just spoken about the fact that United have got 100 million up. Man United, if all continues to go as planned, Man United have 100 million coming in. Baleba's price would have gone down, especially if he wants to move. And United want 2 midfielders. So I think that is interesting. Fabian Hertzler was asked about the Baleba to Man United links, and he said it's the next step for him as a person to overcome those rumours and the noise. He needs to focus on what he can control because he can't influence the rumours and noise. The only thing he does is on the pitch. So again, Brighton are trying to deny that Man United have gotten Baleba's head, but Hertzler himself is pretty much saying he needs to overcome these Man United rumours. Man United has got in his head. I thought he was good last week, I agree. Man United has got in his head, but he's got to overcome those rumours. And Hertzler's coming out and saying this. His form's been poor, so maybe we can lower the fee. Some people say his attitude worries me, brilliant player, but, maybe if he's not in the right headspace. I don't think Baleba has a bad attitude. I think he's a hard-working player, but I think he's a player that needs to be in the right headspace to play its best. I think you could say the same about Marcus Rashford. I never felt that Marcus Rashford had an attitude issue. I just felt that Marcus Rashford had to be in the right headspace to turn it on, and I think Baleba might be someone like that. So for me, there is a concern of, he hasn't been great. We need him to turn it on. We need him to be good, but it could lower his price tag. But Baleba's got to overcome those rumours. His form has picked up. Yeah, he said, apparently he had an injury and he's shaken it off. Some people say his form's picked up. He's had an injury, he's shaken it off. Other people say the Man United rumours had a part to play. Maybe it was a bit of both. Now, I'd like Baleba. I think we can get him for a cheaper fee. I'd absolutely love Baleba at Manchester United. But we'll have to wait and see what happens. But look, we just spoke about the 100 million PSR boost and the fact that Baleba's on the market. And we know that United, and I covered this in my video yesterday, but we know that Ben Jacobs said on the United stand yesterday that Manchester United are planning for 2 midfielders in 2026, maybe 3. So we'll have to wait and see. But look, 2 senior midfielders. So we're talking 100 million PSR boost. Brilliant. Baleba, Elliot Anderson for me. This list, if you took out Gallagher and you put Manu Kono on, this would be a fantastic list. But Man United are looking to bring in 2 big new midfielders. The money can be raised if all goes to plan. The money is there, which is good to see if all goes to plan. Baleba could be one of them, but we'll have to wait and see. Brighton are making it clear he's not for sale. Don't think we'll get Wharton, but I think we need that profile just as much. Look, the dream is Wharton and Baleba, but I think Baleba and Anderson is more realistic, if I was going to be honest. Yeah. One sec. Oh, interesting. Someone keeps asking me about Guella Doué. I mean, I've got nothing to say really on him. Not a player that I'm super familiar with. I know he's at Strasbourg, which means he'll probably go to Chelsea if he does well. And I know that he plays right back and he's looked decent, but I couldn't tell you much on him. We've not been linked to him, to be honest. Anderson, Baleba, and maybe Santos would keep Maino and use him though. Do you know what? A midfield 4 of Anderson, Baleba, Santos, and Maino, just 4 midfield options would be sick. That would be good. I like Anderson's versatility positionally and both sides. Yeah, I think Anderson is very good on the ball. Anderson and Manu Koné are very complete midfielders. I do like the midfielders. If we swapped Conor Gallagher for Manu Koné there, I would like the midfielder options. In terms of other news, Manchester United scouts were in attendance to watch Germany's defeat to Northern Ireland last month, and they were looking at Alexandra Pavlovic. So Pavlovic is a midfielder I like. I just can't see him leaving Bayern for us. I just don't see us getting him. Romano said that JJ Gabriel was considered the best academy talent Man United have, and they're planning a future with him in terms of contract already. Is interesting stuff coming out. So there's been quite a few interesting news stories coming out in regards to United, because I know that like it feels a bit dead when it comes to United news at the moment because we've only got 1 game a week. You know, we're probably not going to get much transfer news until December ahead of January. But I think there's quite a lot going on inside Manchester United in terms of they're already planning for January. They're already planning for 2026. You know, there's new contracts, there's new talks, there's new rumours. And Bruno Fernandes has made 299 appearances for Man United versus Brighton could be his 300th appearance, and he needs to mark it with a winning goal, hey? 300th appearance for Man United versus Brighton is a crazy amount of appearances. But listen, people, I hope you did enjoy today's live show. I hope everybody watching is doing good. I enjoy these live shows at midday. At the moment, I try and do 5 midday live shows a week where we just talk about Man United and what's going on and everything. I try and do 5 midday shows a week, and then I try and do 7 evening videos. I don't know, like, do people prefer midday live shows? They prefer evening live shows? Just because in the evening, sometimes I have plans, sometimes I don't. I normally just do midday live shows because in the evening I can't commit, whereas I can kind of commit to this time before lunch nearly every day unless I have lunch plans. But I don't know if you guys like the balance of live shows in the day, short videos in the evening. Some people probably prefer it the other way around, but every evening you get your Man United news rounded up in 10 minutes, and then the day you can tune in and chat to me about stuff. But anyway, big up everybody. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Go raid Never a Foul. I'm going to redirect you to Never a Foul now. Go give them a raid. Bye.